Okay, we are just now hitting the half hour after, so thanks to those of you who are already on, and I know some of you are still coming on. So we've got Ella, 3 from Oregon, and Inez from Chicago, who's 6 years old. Margot from Oregon, age 3. We've got all kinds of age ranges here. I'll keep reading these off as we go forward. I'm Susan Bonfield. I'm the Director of Environment for the Americas, and I just love doing story time. So it's one of my breaks from the week of some of the less fun activities that I work on, like budgets, for those of you who are familiar with that. So just for more information, if you need anything from us, you can always write us at info@environmentamericas.org or visit our websites, and that's where you'll also find out about the story time for next week. I want to share something fun with all of you who are participating. And on Saturday, May 9th, actually starting on the 7th, 8th, 9th, we're going to have World Migratory Bird Day live. So because of the current restrictions on getting out in large groups or in small groups, even in certain places, we're going virtual this year, like so many others. And we have a full suite of activities prepared for young people and adults. And one of the things that we're having is a bird costume party. So we're going to invite all of you, even the adults, to participate. And we'll be sending out the guidelines for this costume party, and we hope you'll participate. You can participate by creating your costume and either sending us a photo or joining us live during the time that we set up for the costume party. We're going to give out prizes, and we're going to have fun seeing everybody's costume. And these are just some examples of costume parties we've had before and some of the masks and bird costumes that people have made. One of the things about this year is that we want you to use recycled materials. So you got to be creative and use those old bottles or paper or newspapers, just like the girl on the left did. She's got her feathers are made, I think, of, I can't remember, snack bags and bottles and all sorts of things. The white feathers on her front are actually milk bottles. So whatever you can think of. And again, we'll be sending out more information about that activity. So today we're going to learn about owls, and we're going to read the book White Owl, Barn Owl. We're going to do a food web, and then we are going to stump our expert, Dr. Greg Butcher with the U.S. Forest Service, who is with us again this week. He was on with us once early on, for those of you who have been doing story time every week for a while now. So yes, Dr. Greg is on, and he was unstumpable last time. So although I did warn him that you guys have great questions. So we will go on and get started. And I want to thank some of the people who have joined just recently, including Addison and Autumn from California, Mrs. Hughes from Orange, California, Jenny, a second grade teacher, I believe, and some other folks. So let's get started. I'm going to hide my camera so that you don't have to look at me while you look at the book. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the barn owl, and World Migratory Bird Day is a program that we coordinate, and every year we select a number of birds that we use to I don't know, share the message that we're trying to give to people every year. And so this year, our theme is Birds Connect Our World. And we've selected 12 species that we want to use to highlight the many ways that birds connect us to one another, like through this story time. So we're all connected from Illinois to Puerto Rico to Wisconsin to Minnesota to New Jersey, all over the country. We're connected because of these birds and their migrations, and they're bringing us together to learn about them. So we're learning about an owl today, and I want you to look closely at our poster and see if you can find the owl in this poster. So take a close look at all the different species, and can you find the barn owl in this poster? All right, if you found it and you're correct, then this is where it is. We decided to choose the barn owl because the barn owl is located in so many places around the world that we knew it would be a very good education piece for people to learn about birds and their conservation. So we're going to talk a little bit, and in the reading of the book, we're going to learn a lot about the biology and how this bird lives and nests and feeds. One thing that we're going to learn before we start the book is that the barn owl is a bird of prey, and that means that it eats animals. And so this is a barn owl who has captured something and it's flying away with it. It has quite a long tail, so you might want to think about what that could be that would have such a long tail, or what is that? I'm not even sure. But one thing that owls do is that they eat their animals, and they actually eat them whole. But unfortunately, they can't digest every part of the animal. So this is called an owl pellet. And when an owl eats an animal, what it does is it actually vomits up the parts of the animal that it can't digest. And this is called an owl pellet. You can see the feathers in there, and it looks a little bit like poop. But it's not. It's all of the pieces of the animal that it could not digest. And if you were to get an owl pellet and to study it and pull it apart, you would see all of the parts of the body of the animal that it could not digest. Like here we have the skull of a small animal that it couldn't digest, along with a lot of fur. So this is something that's going to be talked about in our book, White Owl, Barn Owl. And you can learn a lot more about this. So if you're ever outdoors and you find these pellets, then you'll know that that is a place where an owl, and actually other species of owls do this also, but that's a place where an owl has been perching. So White Owl, Barn Owl, with many thanks to Nicola Davies and the artist Michael Foreman. One frosty winter day, I helped my grandpa make a big wooden box. What's it for, Grandpa? It's for the barn owls to nest in, he said. What barn owls? I asked, but Grandpa just smiled. Wait and see, he said. We carried the box across the tussocky field. Barn owls like to nest in old farm buildings or hollow tree trunks where there aren't any. They will use a nest box instead. Grandpa put the box high in the old oak tree. How do you know there are barn owls here? I asked. I've seen one sitting on that branch at night, Grandpa said. Look, it's left something behind. Under the branch was a pile of little sausage-shaped blobs. They looked like dried poop, but Grandpa said they were pellets. This is the actual size of an owl pellet. Barn owls have favorite perches that they come back to again and again. The owls spit them out, Grandpa said, to get rid of the fur and bones that they can't eat, they can't digest. He pulled a pellet apart and showed me the tiny bones and skulls inside. Taking a close-up look at the tiny pellets. Will the owl come to our box tonight? Maybe, said Grandpa. Maybe not. Owls are wild birds. You can't be sure what they'll do. In winter, barn owls have to fly miles every night to hunt enough food, so it's hard to find them then. When the sun went down, we kept a lookout just in case, but we didn't see anything. We'll have to be patient, said Grandpa. We were patient lots of times. I thought we'd never see an owl. And then, one spring night, just as the sky went pink, a pale face looked out of our box. A barn owl. And then Grandpa did a strange thing. He put his hand over his mouth and made a loud, squeaky sound. Right away, the owl took off and flew toward us. He thinks I'm a vole or mouse in the grass, Grandpa whispered. He's coming to see if he can catch his dinner. I just held my breath. The owl's whiteness gleamed and its face was like a pearly heart. Under their feathers, owls are slim. Their bones are hollow, which keeps their bodies light and makes flying easy. The owl came closer and closer, then landed in the tree, right by our hiding place. It was so light it hardly bent the twig it perched on. I could see the tiny ruff of feathers around its face, like stiff lace. I could see the speckled browns on its back. I could see the shine of its big, dark eyes. I could have reached out to touch its velvety softness. And then it raised its wings like an angel and took off. It was so quiet, all I heard was my own heart beating. Owls' wing feathers are especially soft, so owls can move through the air silently and fly up to their prey without being heard. Barn owls catch their prey by pouncing with their long legs and needle-sharp talons. The owl flew back and forth over the field. Then another owl came to join it. That's its mate, Grandpa whispered. One owl dropped to the ground and came up again. Look, look, Grandpa, it's caught something, I said. The owl flew straight to the box and went inside. Hiss, snurr, twitter, twitter, hiss, snurr. The weirdest noises came from Grandpa's box. They've got a family, Grandpa whispered. That's the baby owls squabbling over their dinner. Barn owls lay up to 6 eggs, which hatch one after another. The first chicks to hatch are the biggest, and the last to hatch are the smallest. I held Grandpa's hand, and we walked home as the moon came up. Will the barn owls always nest in our box now, Grandpa? I said. Grandpa smiled. You know, he said, I think they might. Barn owls will come back to the same nest site year after year if it stays safe and there's enough to eat nearby. And that is the end of our story. So again, many thanks to the author and to the groups that make it possible for us to use their books online and virtually, including the publishing companies. So now I want you to think about what you saw and what you received. Some of you received our activity for the day, which was learning about a food web. So let's talk just a little bit about an owl and a food web. So what is a food web? A food web just tells you about how animals eat one another and how they're related to each other and actually depend on each other. So for example, you see here that we have an animal that lives in the ocean, like a shark, which might eat another animal that lives in the ocean, like a dolphin, which might eat a fish. And that fish might eat other fish or crabs. And then those crabs and fish might eat other small organisms. And then those small organisms eat even other smaller animals. That's a food chain, a very simple one, but that is a food chain. Let's look at a little bit more complicated one and see what you learned about food chains today. So here we have the barn owl. We have another kind of owl. And then we have some other animals in there. Can you name those animals? I see a rabbit. I see a mouse. I see some seeds. And I see a flower. So what animal eats what other animal? And what do those animals eat? Who eats the seeds? And who eats the flower? Let's see if you have any guesses. You can put them in the chat box. And thanks to those of you who are joining. We have Emma 5 from California, and Gabrielle and Isaiah in Maryland, and Daniel Butcher, who I think is related to our expert. All right, Pranjal's got rabbit, rat, seeds, plant. Okay, let's look at what these animals eat. What do you think the barn owl eats? Does it eat the mouse? Yes or no? I've got one yes. You can put your answer in the chat box if you want, or just say it in your house. Yes, the barn owl eats the mouse. The barn owl eats rabbits. Does the barn owl eat flowers or seeds? No, remember that we said that the barn owl is a predator and it eats meat. So it doesn't eat the seeds or the flowers. I have another answer. Yes, good job. The barn owl eats mice, and then the mice eats seeds. Good job. Does the mouse eat flowers? Possibly, yes. How about the rabbit? What does the rabbit eat? Would the rabbit eat the mouse? Would the rabbit eat an owl? Would the rabbit eat seeds? Or would the rabbit eat flowers? If you said that the rabbit could eat seeds, you're right. The rabbit would eat seeds and the rabbit would eat flowers. And then the big owl at the top, what does it eat? We've got that it eats the rabbit. It also eats a mouse. And this might be the only thing that can eat the barn owl. So now what you see is what's called a food web. When you take something away from the food web, it affects everything else in the food web. So if we take away the mouse, for example, and we have no mice left, then that affects how the barn owl and the great horned owl can eat. Good job, everybody, on the food web. And if you want to, when you colored in your food web that I sent you and send it back to us, we'll share it just like we did your bird art the last time. So I want to remind you before we go to questions that next week we're going to talk about godwits, a species that flies thousands of miles without stopping. So we hope you'll join us next week. And now I'm going to put you live with Dr. Greg Butcher. And again, Dr. Greg Butcher is our bird expert. Greg, I'm going to unmute you and I'm going to have you turn on your camera. And then what we'll do is we'll let some of the folks ask questions. And we've been bringing them on by camera as well, Greg. So you'll get to actually see them.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, I know. This is really fun. So who's ready to ask a question? We do have a comment from Nixon, who said, I never knew an owl could eat an owl.
So, Sue, I'm kind of mad at you because you revealed that that's happened sometimes, because it's really surprising to me too. But owls come in different sizes. And so the big owls can eat the little owls. And it actually happens quite often because all the sizes of owls are active at the same time in the nighttime. And so it's pretty easy for a big owl to take a small owl by surprise.
Well, and then so that if an owl eats an owl, do owls eat other types of birds?
Oh, totally, yeah. All the owls will eat birds as well as rodents. So the birds are usually, except for owls, the birds are usually very quiet at night. And so they try to hide in the trees so the owls can't find them. But every once in a while they stick out and the owls see them, and the owls will eat birds at night as well.
All right, excellent. So if you have a question and you want to be on video, you can raise your hand and I'll put you on video. We do have a question from Kristen, who wants to know, do owls live in all of the states?
Yes, owls live in every state. Now, barn owls live in every state except for Alaska, because barn owls like it pretty warm, so they don't make it up to Alaska. But Alaska has owls of its own, like they have a great gray owl and other species of owls that only like it cold. So some owls like Alaska and Canada, and other owls like the barn owl like the lower states better. So some like cold, some like warm.
Okay, here's a tough one, Greg. This is Jedi Ramos, who I believe is from Puerto Rico, and he asks, how many subspecies of barn owls are there?
Oh my goodness, I don't have any idea. The barn owl is the only owl that's found all over the world. So it's found on different continents. And so there's at least a subspecies for every continent. And it's found on islands in the Caribbean. And so several of the islands in the Caribbean have their own subspecies too. And here's the crazy part. Sometimes we don't know if the owls that look like barn owls are subspecies or their own species. So you get 3 experts together and they might give you 3 different answers.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Good job, Jedi. Let's see. We have so many questions. We have the question, do you know what parts of animals they can digest?
So owls are just like us. They want the meat, and meat is made up primarily of muscles. And then bodies also have organs like livers and hearts and things like that. So those are all edible parts. And so it's feathers and bones that can't be eaten. And then all the muscles and the soft body parts are the parts that they do eat.
Wow. Okay. Eli from Tennessee wants to know, will the great gray owl eat a barn owl?
They almost never overlap. So great gray owls like it up north and barn owls like it down south. And so it's be very rare that a great gray owl would even see a barn owl, much less eat it. So probably not. But it's big enough.
Yeah. We have a question from Leah and Ava. You might know them, Greg.
I know those two. So hi, Leah. Hi, Ava. Hi, Harrison.
How many owls have you seen, and how many owls can we see in the United States?
Oh boy, I forgot to do my count. So I've seen probably 25 different kinds of owls because I've seen them in other countries like South America or Central America. In the United States, I know we have at least 12 species of owls, and I bet the number is higher than that. But there's at least 12 species of owls, and most of those can be seen in New Jersey. So even barn owls and great horned owls can be seen in New Jersey. But if you ever saw a great gray owl in New Jersey, give me a call because that's a very rare sighting for New Jersey.
Cool. Let's see. We have Levi. Levi wants to know, do they eat ladybugs too? Okay.
So
let's see.
ladybugs are too.
Yeah.
Ladybugs are too small for an owl to pay attention to. It's just not important. Now there are some tiny owls like saw-whet owls or pygmy owls that eat insects, but probably not ladybugs, but they would eat grasshoppers, say. So some of the small owls will eat grasshoppers. And I think even a barn owl would take a big insect, like a grasshopper is possible. But ladybugs are too small. Now a mouse might eat a ladybug. So mice eat mostly seeds and flowers, but they'll grab an insect or two from time to time, and a ladybug would be possible.
All right, so I'm gonna see if I can let some people on camera. I got one person who's really anxious to talk to you. Let me ask a couple of people. Lisa Garrett, did you want to be on camera?
No. I want to not be on camera.
Okay, do you want to ask a question?
No, I'm sorry. I must have hit that by accident.
That's all right. I will mute you, and I will go to Pranjal, who is really ready to be on camera. So hang on just a second, Pranjal, and I'll make you a panelist, and you can open your camera. You know how to do this, Pranjal.
Hello, Greg.
Hi, Pranjal. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So, what I am really confused about is that the great gray owl resides in both the US, Canada area, and also in Europe.
Right.
So, would they, how do they introduce owls into a new region?
So in this case, the great gray owl didn't have to be introduced. It was able to fly. So if you get between Russia and Alaska, they're really close. So it's easy for a great gray owl to fly from Siberia to Alaska and back again. And it's the same in the eastern part. They can fly from Newfoundland, Canada, up to Greenland, and then over to Norway. And so owls have really strong wings and they can fly a long ways. And so they can distribute themselves around the Arctic Ocean just by flying, just because they have strong wings to fly.
But then there's also another thing, not necessarily just about owls, but about other birds. How do they get established feral, like the established feral muscovy ducks in Florida?
So people like to eat ducks. And so they go to Mexico and they capture muscovy ducks, and then they do what we call domesticating them. And so people raise muscovy ducks just like they raise chickens. And what's interesting is that a muscovy duck in Mexico, a wild one, is black. But the ones in Florida tend to be black and white and kind of funny colors. And the ones on the duck farms tend to be all white. So people like to eat things, they domesticate them, and they kind of change their patterns when they do that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Pranjal, I'm going to give someone else a chance, okay? Good questions, Pranjal.
Thanks,
All right,
Pranjal.
so I've got Ella Daly, and they want to know how many owls are there?
I'm sorry, folks, I forgot to do my counts, but I think there's well over 100 species of owls in the world.
Oh, good job. We're not going to question you. I have Nixon. Where are you? Nixon, I'm going to unmute you. They wanted to be unmuted to ask a question, but not on camera. All right, Nixon, you're unmuted.
What kind of is there any kind of owls that can not eat other owls?
Oh yeah, for sure, because there's some really small owls that are the same size as a robin or a blue jay or something like that. And they're so small that there's no owl smaller than them, so they can't eat them. And so it takes a pretty big, fierce owl to eat another owl.
Oh.
Good job. Good question, Nixon.
Sue,
yes.
I have a research assistant. And my research assistant says that there are 225 owls in the world. So I would like to thank Linda Fuller for looking up the answer for me. So it's more than double what I thought. It's 225 species of owls in the world.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of species. So Ella, you stumped the expert. Somebody wanted to know, Greg, a little bit about you and what you do. What's your relationship to birds and bird research?
Okay, so I work for the United States Forest Service. And of course, there are a lot of birds that live in forests, so that helps. And I work for a group called International Programs. And what's interesting is that a lot of birds are migratory. And so they spent the winter south of the United States. And now that it's April and May, they're returning to the United States and migrating north. And my job is to make sure good things happen to save habitat for birds south of the United States. So when springtime comes, there are a lot of birds that come back and nest in our backyards.
Thanks, Greg. And Isaiah wants to know, when do owls lay their eggs?
So great horned owls laid their eggs in February, and they're actually hatching now. So great horned owls already have eggs in the nest. And some of the other owls, like barred owls or screech owls, will lay their eggs in the month of May. So it's actually quite variable. And the farther north you go, the later the owls lay their eggs. So if you live in Florida or Texas or California, they've probably already laid eggs. If you live in Maine or Minnesota or Alaska, most of the owls still will have to lay their eggs in the month of May.
Thanks, that's good. We have a, from Levi. Can you please, this is a good question, Levi, thanks so much. Can you please explain more about the owls having hollow bones, please?
Almost all birds have hollow bones. And if they didn't, it would just be so hard for them to fly. And so even their wing bones are hollow. So it just makes them so much lighter that it makes life much easier for a flying animal. And mammals don't have hollow bones. But bats have really thin bones instead of having hollow bones. So anything that flies has to have either thin or hollow bones so that they're light enough to be able to fly.
Good answer. And from the Butcher family, okay, this is a tough one. Who would win in a fight, an eagle or a great gray owl?
Oh boy, it depends on who is in the best training. That would be a very even fight. So that's a really good question because they're both very similar in size. They're both very similar in strength. And lucky for both of them, the eagles are mostly active in the daytime and the owls are mostly active at nighttime. So they don't have to have that fight very often.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Everyone says thank you very much, and I really appreciate your answering their questions. So thanks to everybody.
So I have one regret.
Yes, what's that?
Nobody asked me to make a sound like an owl.
Oh, do it, please. Can you do that?
Could I do a barred owl sound for everybody?
Yes.
Is that all right? Okay. So I hope everybody could hear that. And what you say in English is you say, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? And that's a barred owl call. So if you go out at night, right as the sun goes down, you might hear that sound and you'll know you have a barred owl in your neighborhood. Not barn owl, but barred owl. The names are very similar, but the birds are very different.
Yes, they are, and very, very different looking. So I know a lot of people are hopping off. There's still some questions, Greg, if you want to hang on for a little bit.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Let's see. I think, Nixon, did you want to be unmuted again, it looks like? Let me see if I can unmute you. You might be able to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Have you ever trained an owl before?
I have not, but I know people who have. Screech owls are pretty small owls. They're about the size of your hand. And I know a bunch of people have raised up screech owls, and you can't really train them. But you can be friends with them, and it's actually not really legal. So it's not something that people should do. But if a screech owl fell out of a tree and you held it, you should take it to a wildlife rehabilitator. And then a lot of times these wildlife rehabilitators will keep owls that they can't release because they might have a broken wing or a broken leg. And then they can train those owls to sit on their arm and they can show people close up what an owl looks like. And those rehabilitators have a special license and special training so they can take really good care of the owls. And then they have to feed them mice all the time, so it's really hard work. But so I've never done that myself, but I have friends who have, and it's really a fun career to be a wildlife rehabilitator.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Nixon. Good question. You can mute yourself. And then we have a question from Elma Zellner. What can we do to encourage owls in our neighborhood?
So owls like trees. Now there's a short-eared owl that likes open grasslands, but most of the other owls like trees. And so the bigger the patch of woods in your neighborhood, the more likely you are to have owls. And Linda and I are lucky because we just have a really thin strand of trees behind our house, but every once in a while a barred owl comes to visit us anyway. So having big trees is the main thing.
Jeannie Moore is commenting that they get burrowing owls that fly out to the Farallon Islands, which are about 25 miles off the coast of California. She's making a comment, not a question, but maybe you have something to add to that.
Yeah, so that shows you how far they can fly over water. That's 25 miles over water. And that poor owl, it has no place to land. And so it's probably feeling a little desperate by the time it sees the Farallon Islands. But she's right, they can do it. Now, burrowing owl is another exception. Burrowing owls like open grassy areas. And so a lot of times they'll nest on the edge of a golf course or someplace like that, where there's a lot of grass and open areas. And burrowing owls are fun because they nest in holes in the ground. So they like ground squirrels or animals like that that burrow holes in the ground that they can nest in.
All right, and it's pretty small. I think
Yeah.
that is, oh, here's your, I'm gonna give you this for your last one.
Okay.
How many gallons of food does a barn owl eat each day from the Albert family?
How many what?
Gallons of food.
They probably don't eat it quite a gallon of food, maybe half a gallon of food, but say they might want to catch 6 or 8 or 10 mice in a night. Or if they were rats, they might only need 4 or 5 rats to keep them full in a nighttime.
Oh, you have another person who wants to ask a question. So Levi, I'm gonna unmute you. All right, Levi, you can ask your question by audio, or I don't know if you want to be on camera.
May I please be on camera?
Sure. All right.
Uh-oh, I don't see him yet.
Takes just a minute to get that up. So Levi
Okay.
will be joining us. Levi, there should be a little gray camera by your name if you want to click that and turn it on. Although now I think he disappeared.
Uh-oh, he might hit the wrong button.
No, he's showing up there.
My camera's green.
Yes, Levi's is not. So I'm going to wait and see if that works. And in the meantime, I've got 2 others who would like to be on camera. Just a minute, let me find them. Oh, there we go.
Where's Levi? Hi, Levi.
Oops, we can't hear you, Levi. We need to have your sound on. Is your audio turned on?
He's self-muted.
There you go.
Yeah, can't hear you. We still can't hear you. You need to hit your microphone.
Try again, Levi.
There you go. I see you finding it.
No,
Nope, still not
I can't
green.
hear him.
We can see you, Levi. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read your question that you had.
Wait, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Perfect.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay, so I have a question about the owl.
Yeah.
Different colors? Can they turn to different colors?
No, whatever color an owl is born with, they stay that color for most of their life. So actually, they do have different colors when they're in the nest. But when they leave the nest, they turn on their adult plumage and they stay that color most of their life. And most owls are brown because they need to hide in the trees during the daytime. And so owls are not the most colorful birds that we have in the world.
We have owls.
Thanks for asking me, guys.
We have owls and we can hear them.
Oh, fantastic. It's really fun to go out at night and listen to owls make their calls. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Because one time when we were like in Palm Springs, I was like seeing all these people and I came running and I saw this beautiful owl just in a tree.
Fantastic. That's really lucky to see that, isn't it?
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Levi.
it.
Appreciate that. We're gonna give the camera to someone else. So I'm gonna turn it over to Leah and Ava, I believe. But Leah and Ava,
Ava, you're gonna have to take the reins. Say what's your favorite
on audio, but not on camera.
You have to turn the audio microphone. Guys, this is ridiculous. Say what is your favorite?
It might have gotten out of hand.
We'll wait till you're ready. Okay, let me see what else we got. Well, we do have the question from Nixon again about how many mice a barn owl would eat in a day. You kind of answered that a little bit on the half a gallon. And I think we just have one more question from Nixon who wants to be on camera again. Or Nixon, were you on camera? Or did I not?
I don't
No, I
think
didn't
so.
Okay, let me get Nixon on. I don't know why I couldn't get Leah and Ava on. Okay, here comes.
We're getting pretty silly.
Yeah. All right, Nixon, you're connected and you should be able to turn your camera on. You're on audio. All right, Nixon, did you have a question? We can hear you, but we can't see you. And you are you could be on camera if you click your camera. Or if
And I can't hear him.
I'm not sure if he's speaking, but Nixon, are you asking your question? If not, put it in the chat box.
It's not working.
Okay, do you want to
Okay,
ask?
yes, it is now. I hear you now.
Is there is there a bright color of a type of owl?
I think the barn owl might be the brightest of all because it has all that white on its face and on its front. So there's not really color. Now, there's some owls have a little bit of orange on them. So a short-eared owl has orange flashes in its wings, but they're mostly just shades of brown and tan because they have to hide so much during the day. No, some owls are black and white too. So they're not all brown, there are black and white owls. So they have some contrast sometimes, but not usually bright colors.
All right, thanks, Nixon. I think that's all of your questions, Greg. So thanks again for our expert. We really appreciate it.
I'm having fun. Thanks you for including me.
Oh yeah, we'll have to have you back on. I just want you to know that the program has been attended as part of a second grade science program now, as well as we've got a lot of regulars coming on, so hopefully they'll get to know you as well. And again, for all of you who might be interested, join us for the bird costume party on Saturday, May 9th, and we'll be sending out information because we'll have lots of quizzes and other fun things for you to participate in for World Migratory Bird Day. So thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, folks.